Unfortunately, when we have leaders who run scams and start wars, the people follow each other on a path of self-destruction. We must bring better governments into power. We also have a craving for praise, which is why award ceremonies are so popular. By comparison, we become defensive when criticized. The people who conduct these scams take advantage of these aspects of human behavior. They have taken the role of a Pied Piper. They fill their news reports with praise and entertainment. They titillate us with compliments, such as, "Americans are the greatest people in the world. Americans have a free press and are the most educated people. And Americans are heroes who fight the forces of evil." By comparison, people such as myself cause angry reactions when we tell the people that they are ignorant and conceited fools who are letting themselves and their nation be raped repeatedly. The Pied Pipers lead the majority of people away from General Parton's report, my book, and anybody else who has evidence of these scams. Therefore, most people will never know what we say. So what difference does it make if we expose the scams? This concept especially applies to me. I don't have secret sources of information. I simply looked at the news reports and photographs and figured it out. Why would they worry about those of us who figure out these attacks are scams? There are thousands of us, and we are scattered around the world. How could they kill so many of us without attracting attention? They would need to send a death squad around the world that could kill several people each day. It makes more sense for them to leave us alone and convince the public to ignore us conspiracy nuts. Millions of people might read my book if I died mysteriously, but murder is risky, so they kill only the people they regard as serious enemies. For example, Senator Paul Wellstone was resisting the war in Iraq. Not surprisingly, his airplane had an unfortunate accident. After David Kelly of England said there were no weapons of mass destruction, he committed suicide. However, every suspicious accident and suicide creates problems. Therefore, the people who conduct these scams will prefer to control people with deception and use murder only when necessary. And manipulating people is very easy. Just read the article on Flight 77 at the Urban Legend site, or read articles by these other suspicious journalists. People are born trusting authority, so unless we discover that the authorities often lie, we will believe the official sources of information. Therefore, whoever controls the official reports can control most people. So why should they kill the conspiracy people and take the risk of bringing more attention to us? Porter's second argument is that many government officials would do something if the attack was a scam. He assumes that these officials would put on their shining armor, jump on their horses, and rush off to fight the people who did this. But how can our government fight a scam unless it investigates the attack and determines that it was indeed a scam? The first action our government should have taken was to investigate the attack. Congresswoman McKinney was looking into it, and lots of citizens were also investigating. The American Free Press, for example, published numerous articles on the suspicious aspects of the attack, and several radio talk shows were also investigating. But David Porter and most other citizens ignored or insulted these people, while giving full support to Bush and Cheney, who wanted to limit the investigation.
Let us never tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories concerning the attacks of September the 11th.
Not surprisingly, our government never found any evidence that the attack was a scam. Our government never even found a reason for why Building 7 collapsed. Porter is correct that some government officials would not tolerate a scam. Parton and McKinney are examples. However, most Americans ignored or ridiculed both of them, while encouraging blind obedience to our government and military as they used the attack as an excuse to bomb the axis of evil. Porter and other Americans inadvertently assist these scams by suppressing investigations. Government officials cannot help the nation if the citizens ridicule them as conspiracy nuts. Hundreds of citizens have tried to help Americans realize that their nation has problems, but none of their books have improved the nation because most people refuse to consider that they might be correct. Millions of people will ignore what I say because I am alive, not because they find mistakes with my accusations. Most people will also follow the majority of people, and they believe almost everything they see on television. In fact, a slogan in some advertisements is, "as seen on TV." The first priority of the people who conduct scams is the control of the media. As long as they can manipulate the millions of sheep, it makes no difference what the rest of us are saying. Since 1945, lots of people have worried that the next World War will be horrible because it will involve nuclear weapons. I think we're having the next World War right now, but the primary weapon in this war is deception, mainly through television, but also newspapers and magazines. It's easier for journalists to deceive people than it is for a military to conquer them. An Associated Press article from May 13, 1996 provides an example. After Tim McVeigh's bomb exploded, one of the first policemen to run into the building was Sergeant Terrence Yeakey. He helped people out of the building, then fell through 2 floors, injuring his back. The city decided to give him a Medal of Honor at a ceremony about a year after the bombing. Unfortunately, he committed suicide 3 days before the ceremony. His suicide was described in one sentence. He had apparently tried to slit his wrists, then shot himself to death. It ain't easy to get away with the murder of a policeman, but one journalist can deceive millions of people into thinking the murder was suicide. How obvious do the scams have to be before the American people realize that they're being manipulated? For example, what if Paul Query had written this? He tried to slit his wrists, and then he tried to rape himself, and then he ran over himself with his car. Would that be obvious enough? If a military attacked us, many people would proudly fight back, but most people are easily controlled with deceptive news reports. By the way, why would they kill Sergeant Yeakey? According to Pat Shannon, Yeakey had evidence that the attack was a scam, and he was planning to expose it. But, as with Parton and McKinney, most Americans ignored him. It ain't difficult to understand that the McVeigh bomb and 9/11 were scams. So how can people get away with such obvious scams? Because America is corrupt beyond your wildest dreams. There are lots of Americans willing to join these scams, and Bush's buddy is also. The FBI violates so many laws that they should put themselves on their most wanted list. Americans often boast about our Bill of Rights and our freedom of speech, and they often ridicule the government-controlled media of communist nations. However, the American media is being used like a weapon to manipulate the public and keep them ignorant, often in obvious ways, such as when Congresswoman McKinney was described as more repugnant than Yasser Arafat's 3-week-old underwear. How is that worthless and insulting propaganda any better than the communist propaganda? The American people are being deceived, not educated or encouraged to discuss issues. Furthermore, neither the U.S. government nor the American people put pressure on the news reporters to stop this manipulation and provide intelligent articles. The only pressure news reporters feel is to provide news that is more entertaining than their competition. The reason is simply because most Americans want entertainment, not serious reports. This is why American news reports are dominated by sexual titillation, Hollywood gossip, and weird crimes. As long as most people behave like these guys, America will continue to suffer from extreme corruption and disgusting news reports. Only a small percentage of the population created America in 1776, and only a small number would be needed to change the nation today. The question I wonder about is, does America have enough respectable citizens to turn this nation into something we can be proud of?